What are you building? What are you building? Who's thought about building something? Some of you last night. Some of you already this morning have checked some things on what's progressing. What are you building? That sounds really good. Building something that lasts. I love my kids to get in, but they don't. It'll be good for somebody. Yeah, good. Really good. And you already said legacy. Who thinks about the legacy they're building? We already said that, right? That's two things. What else? You want to build a reputation that you care for others first. Yeah, people won't remember every interaction with you and what you said or did, but you'll remember how you made them feel. And you want them to remember that. Taylor, I liked being around her. I'm glad to see her again. 16 years later, in heaven, whatever it is, right? What else are you building? So I'm in this business, I'm a financial advisor, but I want it to be more than just great financial advice. It puts people's hearts and minds at rest, helps them understand they have a plan. That's really good, but I want it to build the kingdom at the same time. Yeah, still learning. And that Arthur Brooks lesson we learned, like in your career up, just like a pro athlete, you guys who are younger, you're building skills. You're building, your working memory is the same as LeBron James's physical athleticness, if that's a word. But you can keep developing it to a point while you're young. Your brain, entrepreneurs, Nobel Peace Prize makers, lawyers, all max out with their brains in their 30s. That capability, and then they turn so build it up now, and then the rest of your life's called crystallized intelligence, where you're sharing what you have. So it's right to be thinking about, I'm still trying to build my talent, my base. That's good. You're building a technical architecture that helps people go to school, that helps provide funding, that helps kids flourish, that helps build a city. That sounds pretty good. Anybody building a family? Think about that. Building people. That's what you're saying. You're building people all the time. John talks about, I have no greater joy than to know that the people are our children. He's talking about his disciples, not his blood people that walk in the Lord. And you're building that. Okay. How long is what you're building, will it last? He already said, I hope the business lasts past today. How long will the technical stuff last? But tech changes pretty fast, doesn't it? The same code, but a foundation of building that and what it does for others will last long, right? How long will the things you're talking about, this relationship, how long will that last? Who thinks about what they're building, how long will it last? I had a guy yesterday who was building some shelves and he was building a business. He knows the shelves aren't going to make it past the next owner, because as beautiful as he makes them, they're going to rip them right out of that garage. But he knows the business can have impacts. The lasting legacy of what it is that you build. And to think about it often. What does last forever? How long stuff? What lasts forever? God's love lasts forever? Yes. Who works with some souls? Yeah. And you work on behalf of souls, right? That's what you're saying. We hope these kids can flourish and be granted a better education. But yes, God, His Word, and the souls of men last forever. And you can argue that God and His Word are the same thing. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we've seen His glory, the only Son of the Father, full of grace and truth. So we could argue those are the same. But God, His Word, and the souls of men. Who is meeting with some souls today? That interaction, every single interaction is with a soul. And every single interaction gives hope to someone, has a chance to give hope to somebody, make their day better. That's what you said. Every single interaction, that's what lasts forever. So am I surrendered to God in it? And is it blessing somebody else? Is it lasting? Even if it's a temporary project, even if it seems a task. Who gets task focused sometimes? I got to get this thing done. So it'd be a highly strategic task or a small task but the part of your task that lasts forever will be people. Who plans to last forever? You'd like to? Can you know it for sure? Yes. You can. They'll read this for us. If you're a child of God, you last forever. You're an heir of the King. We work on all this building stuff, but it's all going to be yours. All of it. Everything. It's all yours. Who finds himself busy chasing after this or that? Everybody. Even guy in ministry finds himself busy chasing after that all the time. Even your pastor finds himself doing that. Does that. But this verse, and this is really 8, 16, and 17, comes after. How do you know you're a child of God? You said you hope. I know you're assured of that. But this comes after Romans 8:15, which is we cry, Abba, Father. When we cry out to God, who's cried out to God with something? Lord, help me. Lord, I believe, help me to believe. That's a really good prayer. It's confirmed in the Bible. Lord, I believe, help me to believe. It's saying, you're God, I'm not. I need help. When you do that, when you honestly praying out to Him, what this says is God's Spirit, then your spirit's crying out, Lord, help me. You have a soul, you have a spirit, it cries out, Lord, help me. And God confirms with His Spirit that you're a child of God. I got you. Just by the very fact that you cry out is really what the verse is saying, that you know you're a child of God and you're crying to Dad. Help me. Help me. That says we know we're God's children. And then if we're children, you're heirs of everything. Like Christ, you're going to rule. Everything is going to be yours. We didn't lose it a little bit in the garden, and no, we lost it all, but we get it all back in heaven. Everything is yours. Everything is yours. Co-heirs with Christ, and while we follow in His suffering, we become like Him. We're regarded and entrusted with the mysteries of Christ, with the mysteries of God. Who's had a hard week this week? They've dealt with some hard things. So that suffering is building as part of that trust, to connect it back to that 1 Corinthians 4, 1 and 2, and trusted with that. It's something you're being given because you're going to reign with Him forever. We want to play like it. Will, you played a lot of sports. When you're way up and you had some guy celebrating after you're up 3 touchdowns, you kind of said, come on, act like you've been there. Right? You ever say that? Yeah. And it's all yours. So we want to act like and move into what you're saying, that we're His heirs. This is all mine. I don't have to strive and go crazy to get it today. It's all mine. I don't have to be scared of the city. I don't have to be scared of even guns, because I'm His. I'm an heir. I'm going to be there forever. There might be some smart, different things I ought to do to love those around me. But it's probably me laying myself down to help those around me who are scared. Now, this has just been a theme we've been talking about the last 2 or 3 weeks, so I'm just keep bringing it up. But as for me, I'm going to lay it down. I've got it all. God's given me everything, so I'm going to do it. So you are an heir, and we want to think about that way. So how does the fact that you will own it all impact what you build today? Who's got something for work on their mind today that they got to go get done? Okay, everybody. How's the fact that you're an owner of everything God has provided and then going to inherit it all impact how you do your work today? Even the thing on your mind. So yeah, even though it may be a difficult thing, you feel like you can get through it because you're His. It's not really trite to say in the kingdom there are winners and learners. This situation, Lord, I may mess it up pretty good, but you're going to show me something. You know, Romans 12:2 is a verse, we love this in our founding verse of it, that do not be conformed to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by renewing your mind. And then you'll be able to test God's will, His good, perfect, and pleasing will. You'll be able to put out what? So I don't know today. I don't really know if I should put this client in this instrument or that one. I really don't. But I'm going to use all I've got. I'm going to think about them. And I'll say, this seems to serve them the absolute best. And if it doesn't, I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to help get them in a better one. So that's one way, because I really can't mess it up. Now look, I've told my testimony before at the bank in charge of all things digital for a while. Like that guy, the testimony would be, that guy just wants to turn the whole place digital. That'd be what you think of it. And so you can take the fact that your risk profile is really low, because I really can't mess it up, and God's got me. I like that. Who likes that? God's got you no matter what you do. That's true. The sin you commit tomorrow, the sin I commit today, He's covered. He's paid for it all. It's done. It's finished. I really like that. And yet, it's not for me to go conquer the world and build my own kingdom. It's what you said. It's to join Him in building His. And only the people close to me would have known that that's what I was trying to do. But really, that's a problem. I need to say, that guy seems to care more about me than he cares about his job. And all parts of your job, and meeting with somebody and confirming that they're in the image of God and taking away their fear and worry about even their nickels helps align. There are ways to do that. Okay. Who in the company would say, I wish they'd let us just run this thing? You ever said that? And stay out of our hair? Well, hit the guy to your left. He said that about 18 times before, maybe 100. Wish they'd just let us run it. Wish they'd stay out of our hair. Who thought that before?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Taylor has to be careful. I was the leader. But yeah, stay out of it. That's a good way to run a company, to empower them to do what they're supposed to do. Buffett says it this way: we tend to let our subsidiaries operate on their own without our supervising monitoring them to any degree. Geico, go run yourself. Clayton Homes in Knoxville, go run yourself. That means we are all sometimes late in spotting management problems. I mean, it's better to give them ownership and let them fail. Sounds pretty kingdom. Than to just mess with them all the time. God, how much does God mess with you? How much does He just kind of just bother you all the time and nag you about what you're not doing right? When's the last time He did that to you? Yeah, and if anything in this lesson sounds that way, it's not from God. I might be a little bit that way, but God's not that way. He's constantly saying, here it is. So even Buffett is willing to say, let's let it roll, and they'll learn more from it. Most of our managers, however, use this independence we grant them magnificently, rewarding it with our confidence by maintaining an owner-oriented attitude that is invaluable and too seldom found in large organizations. What a word. He worked on that. He put it in the shareholder report one year. But I mean, they use it magnificently. That's what we want to do for what you own. Think about what Andrew said. What are you building toward what you're going to own, and use that magnificently to what really lasts. Does it last? How can I use it magnificently? How about this verse? Okay, how does this encourage you toward that? Who was the first one to think of ownership at work? Was it Buffett? This kind of co-owner position, that's what you are in your work? No, it wasn't Buffett. Where can you think about where you get your real ownership? And God didn't get out of the first chapter of the Bible. They say, let's make man in our image. Male and female, let's make them. And let's give them authority of dominion and rule. And let's subdue over it. God made us co-creators in the first chapter before the fall. Work was given to us before the fall. Work's not a punishment. Work is a way of working alongside of God to build the kingdom. It always was. Before sin, it was that way. What can you go work alongside of God and build that's, let's use Buffett's word here, magnificent? To subdue and rule the earth, to be fruitful and multiply, to make things. He made you a maker and a builder from the very beginning. That part is good. He said it's, the 6 days, He said it's good, it's good, it's good. And the last day when He made male and female, when He made Adam and Eve, He said it's very good. After this statement, it's very good. So how does being a co-worker in God's service, what else in this verse is really encouraging as you go to work today? I mean, think about what you've got on as a task, and think about how this verse encourages it. Yeah, you think about what the company's laid, and they've laid a good foundation for you to build on. It's a big company, 100,000 employees. It's a big company, laid a good foundation, but before that, God laid a foundation to let it happen. God laid the foundation. What else? Even if they mess up. That's what Buffett's saying. That's what Jesus is saying. Even if give them the power to do it. See how far they can go. One really mentor I had used to always say, I was always helping this other guy in investor relations, and he said, let that guy fail. He's not going to learn. Let him fail. And then he was really messing up, and he said, go help that guy. Okay? So we do that. We get it both ways. We can't fail too far. That is investor relations. It is a stock price we're worried about. But don't go mess with him. Yeah, give it to him. How much more empowered? How much more image bearing? Our job as co-creators is to let other people know they're image bearers and the value that God places on them. That's what giving these kids a great education is doing. And your data work is providing a great education that's allowing kids to be treated that much better by teachers who are totally invested in letting them know they're image bearers. That can make a big difference. That can make a big difference in our crime in 20 years. One child at a time. What else encourages you? There's nothing. You have complete free will. Yet there's nothing happening in the universe that he's not in complete control of and that he's not using for good to somehow shape it. It's not a sparrow falls to the ground, not a hair on your head. It's all working for good. So even if I mess it up, he's going to use it. So therefore, is that an excuse to go do it sloppy? No, it's an excuse to go do my best. And because where do you go? Which do you learn more from? Doing your absolute best or doing it sloppy? Somebody might still be in graduate school can tell us that on a test. If I go do my best, I'm going to learn a little bit more. If I do this project to my best of my ability, I don't really know what I'm going to do at the end of the day. But if I do it better, I'm going to learn something from it. It seems like a menial task, but I'm going to go put my best to it. Ask for the Lord. What else is in here? There's some other really big thing in here. Our theology of work, if it's to be, it's up to me, that's a pretty bad theology. It's a saying on a lot of posters, cheap posters. Will, you haven't been in this yet, but a lot of offices have some cheap posters that say, if it's to be, it's up to me, or a whole bunch of other sayings that say something like that. But instead, God's got it. He's doing it. Now, what does it look like for me to move in faithful? Because he lets his children be unfaithful. Samson basically made a whole life of bad decisions and lived a miserable life, really, but fulfilling because he knew he was special. But then he died in glory, knowing he fulfilled the prophecy of how he was built. To destroy the Philistines, to destroy the enemy of Israel. And he did it. But he had to learn, he learned a lot the wrong way. So we can make bad decisions. We can think it's up to us. We can think it's about us. But here's what's up. This one I pointed out yesterday really well. It really was encouraged to them. We're God's field. We're God's building. You are his field. While you're his co-worker, he's building you. You're his field, you're his building. He's building you while you work. I'm his co-worker. I'm alongside Christ doing what God's given me to do. He said, go and do likewise. And now he's building me while I do it. And who's done absolutely, positively the right thing and been treated wrongly for it? When you always say, God, you got this, I'm giving it over to you. And then been treated wrongly for it. Anybody happen to anybody? Yes, it has. Yes, it has. You've done the right thing. You've given somebody kindness and they've returned it wrong. Yes? Yes? If you had to go all the way to when you were a kid, hadn't to you lately at work, it happened to you when you were a kid, you did to each other as siblings. So it happens. You do something right and you're still returned wrong. What happened to Jesus? He did everything perfectly. And how did we turn? He was treated wrongly back for it. So he builds it. It's almost all, when we really move in, okay, God, I'm yours, I'm doing it your way. And then we're going to find that people don't, hey, I'm doing all this stuff just for the kingdom. It might get harder. But he's building us. You're his field. His heart is yours. You're his building. He's constantly renewing you. And then at the end of the day, what did you just learn? I learned what it's like to be Jesus for a minute. Just this much, this much. Because he was perfect and had no sin. But this much of I did what I thought was best and somebody treated me wrong. So laying that down, he's building you. His foundation's doing that. And then this verse, amazing verse about work. What's encouraging here to you? You think I'm going to read it one more time. Unless the Lord builds this house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. How does this guide you today? Did you go to bed saying, I just basically did what I could do today? He's saying it to you. Good work today, Robert. You're my child. I love you. Get some sleep. How does this verse encourage you? The promise is rest. Who's laid in bed worried about it? Really worried about it. Oh, I get up. Monday night I had to get up. I don't know if it's a bad meat I ate or whatever. I had to get up, but a couple of things were bothering me. I just did a voice text, left myself a couple of things, and I was able to go to sleep. I got it off my chest. So you can't don't flip to ministry and think you're just going to sleep all the time. You are in ministry. So it happens, but you're spun on something for a long time. You just can't let this go. He's calling you in. He's saying rest in it. He's saying, and here's how you can start to rest. Unless the Lord built it. I said the confidence that He's doing it anyway. He is building it. He is doing it. So we know that. But then, and we are to labor, we know that. We've already established that. The Lord's doing it. He's using all of our work together for His grand and masterful plan. And we know that we're called to be laborers. But unless the Lord builds it, it's in vain. Who's worked in vain before? Yeah. What does vain mean in this verse, you think? Futility, good one? Worthless. That's a free book, Hurston. That's right on. That's what I've been thinking. That's a free book. But it's worthless. When we're doing something, if we're not doing it His way, it's worthless. We can have perfect guards over the city. I saw on the news last night, the state of Tennessee's agreed to bring in more state troopers, and the mayor's pretty fired up about it, and that's going to help with shootings, and they've already proven that the more they brought those in, the less there's been in the interstate shootings, so they're going to bring in more and more. We can bring in we can put a blue light and a trooper on every block, but unless the Lord watches over this city, that will be in vain. We can all build walls, and unless the Lord watches over the city, that will be in vain. Okay, I'm just keep using the city one because it's what's on everybody's minds. It's what you're talking about at dinner parties and cocktail parties and pre-Sunday school. You're talking about it all the time. But the Lord, who has this city? Yeah, He has it. In vain, rise early and stay up late. So we work hard. Now, who has stayed up late physically but known they were doing the right thing to get something done?
Absolutely.
It's the only way you raise a baby. It's worth it. There's one right there. You all were babies. Your parents stayed up late, and it wasn't in vain because they were raising you up. So they did lack sleep for hours, for months. They lacked a bunch of sleep. But they knew they went to bed and they slept well. And then God so gives that to parents like, that's just a fog. I can't even really remember it. So it's not that it's always physical, but it would be that your heart and mind is at total rest. When you know you're doing God's will, taking care of this baby that's throwing up, I can pretty much say I'm in God's will to take care of him. That's me. I've been entrusted that child. I'm supposed to do that. And it's the same with your work project. But we get a little confused. Can it be in His will? How do you know? How do you know if it's in His will? Because we're saying if it's the work you're doing, and Andrew said it really well. He said, is it consistent with what you're going to own later? And Taylor, what you're saying about people, and I want them to have a better day, and I want them to know, I want to be remembered, but mostly you want them to know they're an image of God because they're going to last forever, and that's evangelism, letting them know they're worth something. Why do you always treat me well? I've messed up this project 14 times. Why are you still treating me well? Because I've been there, and somebody paid for my mess up. Let me tell you about it. But how can you know what you're going forward today to do is in God's will? Test it. Yeah, certain things you're foggy about. This or that, I'm not sure. Some people should move, some people should not move. We said that. That's right. Some people wear different clothes for the same reason. So in my work, some things I need to test. But what are some things that I already know that if I do it this way, it'll be good? All the law boils down to what? A simple test. I mean, it's not a test. But all of God's word boils down to what?
Pure heart and love.
Yeah. Love your Lord, your God, with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Augustine kind of famously says, when I don't understand what a verse says, I want to get in and say, where does this verse lead me to glorify God, to know God, and where does it lead me to love neighbor? And I'm going to flip and say it's the same thing for your action. Do I know this thing I'm doing today? Is it going to help me know God better? I'm His field, I'm His building, and is this going to help me know God better? Am I going to trust Him more through this action? It's not, is it going to make more nickels or less nickels? Although you're charged to do that for your companies. And you have a responsibility to do that. You have a responsibility to not be careless with the assets that have been entrusted with you for your clients. Absolutely true. But the action is, which thing is going to help me know God better? And that's what Taylor's saying she wants her legacy to be. Which thing is going to help them know God better? That somebody cares for. How's this going to help me know God better? How's this going to help me glorify Him? How's this going to help me trust Him? How's this going to help that person trust God better? That'd be the first one. And then how does this love them? Is this action loving toward others? Do I have them above myself in it? That would clean up about 98% of what you're thinking. The will of God, right after that, should I do this or that? After that is that's where you test it. Because the other 2 points are so perfectly clear. Over and over and over again. And that'll cost us something. This person is just railing. I'm brand new at this job. Who's been this? I know, we've talked about it with a couple of you, but I mean, this person's railing on me and I did it right. Now, okay, so where do I need to stick up I'm actually following the right process and doing the right part about the job, and where do I need to let this slide because that guy's just having a bad day? Which is love. Sometimes it's going to be love to say, you know what, you've been doing this for a while. We had some clients that you treat our employees bad. We're going to talk to you about it. You treat me bad, I'll probably let it slide a couple times. You treat our employees bad, we can't do the job for you. This is hurting us trying to do the job for you. That's going to happen when you manage all those folks. So what is loving? Sometimes it's to say, hey, you're not being loving. You can't continue to be a client if you act like that to our people. You can't continue to keep this piece of equipment if you don't pay. That can be better for them. Let them get to the end of themselves. It can be love to say the straight up thing. So loving is not so I'm gonna pass on, I'm gonna let it go, I'm gonna let it go, I'm gonna let it go. Love might be, I need to tell them. But either way, we do it like, what about me? But really, which is probably the harder thing for you. Often it's the harder thing. We choose the easier road. We think it's about which things, take the job, makes more nickels. No, I'm going to take the job where I'm going to know God and bless more people. How's it doing? That's the same as my day. I'm going to live in the city that makes me need to trust God, glorify God with my actions. Do we have a chance to do that in Memphis? Where's the root cause of the problem? And you all have, with all the people in the room, you have all a slightly different answer. And I bet what God's doing, we have a podcast on this, the last one, is saying the thing that you think's the biggest crime, the biggest issue that causes crime, move into it and help solve that. Kids who don't have anything to do. So Walker Waiter helping MGM and giving them something to do in Binghamton. Idle children, idle teenagers is really bad. Things happen. So we're going to give them something to do. We're going to give them football. Football is going to learn a lot of good discipline in football. And we can learn about being in the image of God, and we can learn some discipline, and we can learn relationships with men that are positive. So whether I think it's that there are no positive role models for people who grow up and commit crimes, or I think they can't read, or I think they need something to do, the thing I think the biggest, I move into it. If I think we need more police, we show up and thank a policeman. There's this whole thing, back to blue. We can show up and we can thank them all we want. Thank you today. So we move into where they are. That's love. It might cost us something. It might cost us I'm a half a day, just tell policemen thankful and pass out donuts. So we move into it. Let's use this verse. Wade, will you read? What's the encouragement here? It starts with encouragement. If you build it God's way, what?
It'll last.
It'll last. You're like a wise man. Again, you don't know how to build it perfect yet. We're learning to build. We're His building. We're learning to build stuff. But we build it the way He tells us to build it. It's like being built on a rock and it lasts. If we're focused on the things that move us forward, then they're focused on things that are going to last forever. Is this thing going to last forever? It's built on a rock. But if and the rains came, the streams, suffering comes, persecution comes, people treat you poorly, people stand against it, economies go up and down, stock markets crash. But it stands when I've built into a person. It stands when I help that person know when I do their financial plan that they're going to be fine without a financial plan. They're going to be fine. If you make it to 105, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine in these nickels. I'll help you figure that out. You're also going to be fine forever. So I'm going to build it that way. I'm going to confirm that they're in the image of God. I'm going to love them. But if I don't do it this way, it washes away. It goes away. It goes away. And that could cost me something. And let's just flip to this. One final verse. Andrew, will you read it? Okay. What's this show us? Who's the ultimate architect? That's what Carter pointed out yesterday. He's an architect. I'm worried about how it's going to turn out all the time. But God's architecting it. We're just supposed to be faithful in the moment. God's got it. Hamp said, the sovereignty of God, he learned, is the soft pillow we lay our head on. So He's got it, but I'm moving into it, and Jesus He's the pioneer. He made you. In your mother's womb, He made you. He's developing you. He used your two parents to put you together and give you all the gifts you have and give you all the dysfunctions you have. Sin did that, but all that came together. And He says, fearfully and wonderfully made. And then He moved into, like, when we're talking about doing this hard, and some of it sounds like suffering, and we say, we've provided that Romans 8:17 will be heirs and be in glory with Jesus forever, provided we suffer for a little while. But the joy of it. Who's done something for somebody they love and been so fired up about it and it cost them something? It was joy to do that. It was joy. Those of you in relationships, it's joy to serve them and see it pay off. Joy to drive from one college town to another and have your girlfriend excited, isn't it, Will? That sounds crazy. 10,000 miles every 3 months to make sure this relationship stands together. That sounds like, who wants to drive 10,000 miles? But for the joy set before you, you do it. And that's what Jesus is saying. He knows the suffering. He knows He's headed to the cross. He knows He says, it's not my time a couple of times. And then John 13:1, He says, now the hour has come. Because of the love for the people. He knows the whole time. He knows His purpose. He knows He's laying it all down. He knows He's given up His rights as owners. He's subjugated His rights. Like, you can control that project like you're talking about, Taylor. But if I give it to them, they'll know they're worthy of something. So He surrendered His right. It'd be easier on you just to do it. Right? That's true for Jesus. It'd be easier for Him just to bring all this home, bring everybody home, but for us, for the joy laid before them, let's let them play around with this a while. Let's let them see and turn to me. Let's let them surrender their fears. Let's let them surrender what they're worried about. And let's let them help me in building the kingdom for the joy set before them. It's a joy. You've been confirmed that you're doing the right thing, and so you'll face some suffering. You'll face some shame. Why is He doing that? That doesn't seem right. We're getting out of here. Why are those people staying? You'll make some choices. Some of your friends saying, "Why do you spend time with her all the time? Why don't you spend time with us anymore?" You're making some choices for more joy, and that's what following Jesus' way is ultimately. That's a little taste of what then becomes the ultimate. Joy is laying it down. Consider God, Jesus, who endured such opposition from sinners that you'll not grow weary. He did it. He did far more. He suffered far more. He laid His life down on purpose, and He didn't do it. It's like, oh, now let me figure out how I can suffer today. No, that's not it. Let me figure out how I can help somebody else know God today. These work you're given today is to help. It's given to you as God builds you so that you help build up others and build the kingdom that people will know Jesus.